Hello, and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host, Rob. In today's video, I thought we'd continue with Druid for a little bit, and we're going to be looking at the Circle of Stars Druid. I'm probably going to do the Circle of Wildfire next. I've also had a viewer request for the Gunslinger Fighter from Critical Role, so we're going to be doing that in the near future as well. And of course, we're going to be continuing on our multi-class tier videos. So that's kind of the slate for the next little bit. But I figured we'd finish off Druid since we started with the Circle of Spores last week. So today we're looking at the Circle of Stars. And I quite like the Circle of Stars. I do have a few minor complaints here and there, which we'll talk about obviously as we go through the video. But overall, I think it's a very, very solid option. And it's one that I think actually gets better and better as you level up, which I quite like. So anyways, at level 2, when you first get your subclass, you get the ability to create a star map. You've created a star chart as part of your Heavenly Studies. This is a tiny object and can serve as a spell casting focus for your Druid spells. I like that. You determine its form by rolling on the star map table or by choosing one. And when holding this map, you have the following benefits. You know, the Guidance cantrip. This is excellent. Guidance is one of the best cantrips in the entire game. You have the Guiding Bolt spell prepared. It counts as a Druid spell for you, and it doesn't count against the number of spells you can have prepared. Here's the good part though. You can cast Guiding Bolt without expending a spell slot. You can do so a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you gain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Now, I do think that in general I have a real problem with some of these like attack roll to do damage type spells. It's different with a cantrip when I'm not expending any sort of a resource besides my action on that turn, right? But when I have to like spend a spell slot and cast a spell and then I miss, it just feels bad. But in this case, you're not expending a spell slot, and although I'm not a huge fan of these types of spells in general, if you compare Guiding Bolt to say Chromatic Orb, for example, similar type spell, right? Both requiring a spell or an attack spell roll to hit. Guiding Bolt does more damage than Chromatic Orb. And it has a very nice rider effect where the next person that attacks gets advantage on that attack against that target. That can be pretty good sometimes. Now there's other times it's completely worthless, but whatever, right? The fact is though, it's not bad and the damage is pretty good. Now you don't get to pick an elemental type like you would with Chromatic Orb, but you are doing radiant damage, which is one of the least resistant damage types in the entire game. So I feel like it's pretty good. You're not going to have an opportunity to do maybe like vulnerability damage. But overall, I think it's a much better spell than Chromatic Orb, for example. Granted, I do hold Chromatic Orb in rather low esteem. So, read into that what you will. But either way, I don't think it's too bad. And if you compare like Guiding Bolt to just doing like a damage cantrip, Guiding Bolt is considerably far ahead. Now, unfortunately, according to Sage Advice, if something gives you a spell for free and you can cast it without spending spell slots, you can't upcast it. Otherwise, that would be very nice. But even the level 1 version isn't too bad. I'd probably use it fairly often at lower levels. And even as I start to level up more, I just get more uses of it. That's not terrible, right? It's not requiring concentration. So maybe I'm concentrating on like some sort of summoned beast or something since I'm a druid. Having something I can do on my turn and not use concentration is pretty good. So I don't think that's a bad ability at all. But we also get Starry Form. And this is really what people want from this subclass. As a bonus action, you can expend a use of your wild shape feature to take on a starry form rather than transforming into a beast. While in your starry form, you retain your game statistics, but your body becomes luminous. Your joints glimmer like stars, and glowing lines connect them as on a star chart. This form sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet. The form lasts for 10 minutes. It ends early if you dismiss it, no action required, are incapacitated, die, or use this feature again. Whenever you assume your starry form, choose one of the following constellations, and your body gains certain benefits while in this form. We'll talk about that in a second. I wanted to talk about this part first. The bright light for 10 feet and dim light for 10 feet, that can be okay. Sometimes it can be a disadvantage if you're trying to be stealthy, or if you have, like a Gloomstalker Ranger in your party right next to you, he might not appreciate that much. But, also if you had dark vision, it might be rather relevant. But, in most combat situations, it's probably not going to matter much. My only real problem with it is that it's only for 10 minutes and it doesn't scale at all. It just remains 10 minutes forever. Whereas if you look at like the wild shaping for, turning into different beasts, you start at like a number equal to half your druid level, and it obviously just continues from there, right? So you're always going to be half your druid level. But even at level 2, that would mean that if you turned into like, a mouse, you could be that form for an hour, not 10 minutes. And as you level up, you can just stay in that form longer and longer and longer. On the plus side though, unless you're Circle of the Moon, most druids end up using their wild shapes for like out of combat stuff, maybe some exploration or whatever. Maybe once you get to higher level and you can take on different forms, like something with a swim speed or a fly speed, you could use it for that specific effect, the room floods, so you turn into a goldfish or whatever. I mean, granted, all your allies die, but you got Revivify on your spell list now. As long as you can drag those bodies out of the water room at some point, you'll be fine. And so will they, If not, well, they probably should have made druids, because then they could have turned into goldfish too. Anyways, so there are some advantages there. Like I said, I think it's quite strong overall, as we're about to talk about the different forms. I do wish that it lasted longer, though. That's really my one big complaint about it. But I do like the fact that you have something you can do in combat with your wild shaping, because, like I said, if you're not Circle of the Moon, your wild shapes are not very useful in combat usually. So it's nice that you have other alternatives here. Anyways, your 3 forms. We have the Archer. The constellation of an archer appears on you. When you activate this form, and as a bonus action on your subsequent turns while it lasts, you can make a ranged spell attack, hurling a luminescent arrow that targets one creature within 60 feet of you. On a hit, the attack deals radiant damage equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. Now this isn't too bad. I've heard some people complain about the damage, and, fair enough, it's not really scaling. It does go up another die 8 when you hit to level 10. That is pretty late though. But that's basically the same damage as a spiritual weapon and has a range of 60 feet. It's using your bonus action. It's not requiring a spell slot. It is requiring a wild shape use instead. But, like I said, I think that could be a decent trade for you. It's not using concentration. It's just on your bonus action, you can just fire out these bolts and do some damage. And I think especially at low levels, that's not too bad. I mean, you could be using your Guiding Bolt as your action, which is not a spell, of course. You're just, using it to cast a spell essentially, but not using your spell slots. And using this as a bonus action. And you can be doing some pretty solid damage, assuming you actually hit, because both of them require a hit roll. So if you're fighting, somebody in plate mail, you're probably in trouble. But if you're fighting a beast, if you're murdering poor defenseless animals like a good druid, then you're probably fine. Anyways, Chalice. A constellation of life-giving goblet appears on you whenever you cast a spell using a spell slot that restores hit points to a creature. You or another creature within 30 feet of you can regain hit points equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. I kind of like the fact that it doesn't have to be the creature you healed. So I could heal, let's say, the fighter in our party, right? But the wizard's also missing some hit points. And I'm pretty sure this spell is going to top the fighter up. I could give the actual 1d8 plus my wisdom modifier to the party's wizard while healing the fighter. Or I could give it to the fighter if I think he really needs it. I could heal myself with this. I like the fact that while healing one guy, I can either like super heal him, or I could spread the healing around a little bit. That's kind of a neat effect. And an extra 1d8 plus my wisdom modifier on top of a healing spell is not bad at all, So, again, pretty decent. Finally, we have the dragon. A constellation of a wise dragon appears on you. When you make an intelligence or a wisdom check or a constitution saving throw to maintain concentration on a spell, you can treat a roll of 9 or less on the die 20 as a 10. This is actually really good, especially for maintaining concentration, because it means that even if you have 10 constitution, and I don't know why your druid only has 10 constitution, though. It's probably a terrible decision. But anyways, assuming you even do, the only way you could possibly fail then is if you took 22 damage in one hit, and now you've got, a DC of 11 or worse, right? And with no Constitution modifier, if you roll anything lower than a 9, treating as a 10 still isn't going to help you. So a 10 or less would cause you to fail in that circumstance. But let's say you had a +2 con mod. All of a sudden now you're, 24 damage is still safe. You're needing to take 26 in one hit. And if you took 26 in one hit, you're probably going to have problems regardless. Forget about your concentration. You have other issues right now. So the fact that you can maintain concentration on your spells like that is excellent. And then, also being able to use it for intelligence or wisdom checks is not bad either. But honestly, I think Dragon is probably my favorite of the three. Although there's pretty decent arguments for any one of them, especially if you need to do some damage or do some healing, right? Anyways, at level 6, we get Cosmic Omen. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can consult your star chart for omens. When you do so, roll a die. Until you finish your next long rest, you gain access to a special reaction man, I cannot read. Based on whether you rolled an odd or an even number on the die. Wheel, or even. Whenever a creature you can see within 30 feet of you is about to make an attack roll, a saving throw, or an ability check, you can use a reaction and roll 1d6 and add the number to the total, or whoa, odd. Whenever a creature you can see within 30 feet of you is about to make an attack roll, a saving throw, or an ability check, you can use your reaction roll and roll a die 6 and subtract the number from the total. You can use this reaction a number of times, equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So again, something that scales with our proficiency bonuses. I do wish that we could use this ability after we've seen the results of the dice roll. Usually there's a couple different ways these abilities go, right? So you have ones like this where you have to use them before, and then you have the other ones where you can use them after. And after is always better because it might mean you don't have to use the ability at all, right? So like maybe somebody in your party needs to make a saving throw, and you're worried that the dumb half-orc is not going to make his saving throw, so you decide to use your ability and give him that d6 on that saving throw, right? And then he ends up rolling a natural 20 and would have passed anyway. Well, you've now expended the ability, you've used your reaction, and you could have maybe used that on a different party member who might possibly fail that same saving throw. And because you're like, well, the orc's definitely probably going to fail, so let's help that guy out. And then he passes. You could have been using it on someone else. But that said, it's still a really solid ability. Anything that's going to let me or an ally pass a saving throw or a really clutch ability check, or even just subtracting from the attack roll of somebody who might have absolutely crushed the wizard when he's concentrating on something. And you're like, you know what? Instead of having to make a concentration saving throw and give him the bonus on that, I'd just rather he didn't get hit in the first place. And, it's still a pretty strong ability. Like I said, it could have been even stronger. I wish it was after the ability. But, it is what it is. Take what we can get. Still pretty good. Level 10, Twinkling Constellations. The constellations of your starry form improve. The 1d8 of the archer and the chalice becomes 2d8, so that damage or that bonus to healing. And while the dragon is active, you have a fly speed of 20 feet and can hover. Moreover, at the start of each of your turns, while in your starry form, you can change which constellation glimmers on your body. I really like this ability because now, let's say that I'm, in the dragon form, for example, right? Maybe I'm concentrating on some sort of summon spell. I'm like, I might need that bonus by concentration. Then somebody takes a whole bunch of damage. At the beginning of my turn, I could decide, you know what? For this turn, I'm going to change, and I'm going to go with the chalice. I'm going to heal that guy, and now I'm going to be able to give him a couple of bonus die 8 worth of healing. And as long as I don't get hit, I'm not going to have to worry about my concentration. And next round, I can change back to the dragon again. And this suddenly makes it so much more flexible. You can be switching back and forth between multiple forms. You could be in the archer form, firing out some damage, and then, somebody got hurt. I'm going to switch to chalice and heal them. And, now I'm going to go back to archer and shoot some more damage. And, I'm going to cast a spell. I'm going to turn the dragon. Or maybe I just need to be able to fly for a bit. I'm going to turn the dragon, And the fact that I can just change it every single turn is really, really nice. Anyways, level 14, Full of Stars. While in your starry form, you become partially incorporeal, giving you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So this is basically our final ability for the Circle of Stars. And I do quite like it, especially combined with like the dragon. If you have, because notice it's not like non-magical damage, for example, right? It's just all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So if I'm getting resistance to those types of damage, and then I'm also getting a huge bonus to my concentration saving throw, it's pretty safe to say that I'm almost never going to fail a concentration save once I'm at those levels. And that is pretty good. Like I said, the only real complaint I have about this subclass is that your starry form is essentially only good for that one encounter, right? Or you can use it out of combat, obviously, if you needed to make an ability check, or you needed to be able to fly and nobody had any other method of doing so, whatever, right? But in general, I'm just saying, you get in a fight, you assume your form, that fight ends, your 10 minutes runs out, your form's gone, right? Whereas, like I said, with a lot of the other druid forms, those forms last a long time. And you can just carry them over from fight to fight to fight, which can be really advantageous. I wish that this one lasted longer, even if it just like scaled a little bit. Like maybe it went up to like an hour at level 10 and went to 2 hours at 14 or something. At least then there'd be that opportunity to like carry it over a bit, right? But as it is, I still think Circle of Stars is very strong. I like the Tasha druids quite a bit, to be honest. I really like Moon as well. I mean, I get the appeal. Like I said, if you want to be a shapeshifter, Moon's clearly your best option, right? It's the only one that really specializes on shapeshifting. But I also think the druids have a lot of other things to offer. I like the spell list quite a bit. I think it's pretty well balanced. But unlike the cleric one, it's a little more offensive and a little less buff oriented. I don't mind that particularly. I think that's a good trade. And I like the fact that you've got a lot of nice healing options. You've got some out of combat use with your exploration and your different beast forms and stuff. I think Druid's actually just a really pretty strong class. The no metal armor kind of sucks sometimes, but wizards don't have any armor. And they're probably the strongest class in the game, so what do you do, right? That doesn't necessarily make or break your class. But overall, I like this subclass quite a bit. Like I said, I do wish that the Circle of Stars form lasted longer. That's my only real complaint about this particular class. And I kind of also feel like if you're not in your Circle of Stars form, it feels like a really generic druid, right? Because that's really what sets you apart, is that you have your different constellations, you can choose your different form, you get all these cool abilities, and, because of the fact that it's basically like, every encounter I kind of have to use this ability, otherwise I just feel like a generic druid. That's really one of the big reasons I wish it lasted longer. But even still, I think it's a very strong subclass. I think that I've personally never played one, but I kind of want to, especially, I don't know why they didn't put Crown of Stars on this spell list. They should have gotten that as a special ability, like 14th level or something. That would have been perfectly thematic. But whatever. Overall, I still think it's really solid. Anyways, that's basically everything I have. I'm starting to just repeat myself at this stage. So that's probably a good sign that it's time to end the video. So anyways, thank you for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and most importantly, like I always say, leave me your comments in the comment section. I'd love to hear about your experiences with the Circle of Stars. Maybe you found that the forms wasn't really a big hindrance at all. You're like, you know what? We only had 2-3 encounters per day usually. I was able to use them all the time. I think it's a little different if you're doing like a big dungeon or something, and you're having multiple encounters per long rest. You're getting like 8 or 12 encounters or something like that. That would be a different scenario, I think. But for most campaigns, that's not really the way things seem to go these days. So I think that especially if you're looking at a more limited amount of encounters, then this one starts to really shine because you can use your good abilities in basically every encounter. So anyways, like I said, that's everything. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.